Welcome to the Yalla podcast. My name is Alon.
I'm Elik.
And today we have with us Manar, who is Palestinian from Syria. Manar, say a few things about yourself and then we will begin.
Yes, so basically I'm half Syrian, half Palestinian. My dad was born in Jaffa, I was born in Latakia, so was my mom. And briefly in 2011, I got involved into the Syrian Revolution as a human rights activist. And 2013, I had to flee, and I left to Turkey. Later on, 2 years later, I moved to Germany, and this is where I am now still. And yes, regarding everything. And now I am a filmmaker, and I'm also, at this moment, very much looking at what's going on. And yeah.
Yes. So, Elik, do you want to say a few words about the podcast and about why we have Manar here with us?
Yeah, so Yalla podcast is an anti-Zionist podcast, revolutionary and anarchist, anti-capitalist. We're both radicals in our views. We don't take anything in this world for granted, right? Like all the structures.
That's a very good summary.
Yeah. And we started to do it for, talking about the liberation of Palestine as people who come from the privileged or oppressor side, when we have another podcast that is called One State Solution, which we talk between us and analyze our position from within the Zionist society. Cult. And in this podcast, we bring guests. We kind of feel part of our feeling that we live in kind of, this ghetto inside the Middle East that have no connection to people around. When Israelis go out, they usually go to the airport, they go to Europe, they go to India, they go to,
South America.
The only place we are allowed to go is to the Sinai Desert that Israeli go sometimes, or to Amman, but also in Jordan, but they don't go somewhere. And basically our feeling that we don't know our neighborhood at all.
Yes.
And through this podcast, we started to talk more also with Palestinians, but also with Arabs who from all around our place. And we have this dream that one day this will be a way more free area, way more easy to communicate with people around.
And to commute everywhere.
Yeah. And we have the belief that everything is connected in some level. Like what's going on in Syria is not separated from what's going on in Palestine, even though I don't understand the connections. And I hope you could help us with this a bit in describing for us your life, your involvement with the Syrian Revolution, and then also to understand what's going on today. What does it mean, like the fall of the Assad's regime, and what does it mean what do you feel about it personally? But let's start from more going back, right? A bit.
I would just say that we approach this, the reason that this episode happened was because I was confused about what was going on in Syria, the fall of Assad's regime, and I heard many conflicting opinions about what was going on, and I sent Manar, my friend, a message, and I asked him what the fuck is going on, because I know that you know much more about this than I do, and we had a conversation, and I said to Manar, I think many people in my situation, in Elik's situation, need to hear what you're saying and much, much more to understand what is going on in Syria. So thank you, Manar, for coming and explaining this to us.
Cheers. Yes. So first of all, I will just say this because when I listen to Syrians, I can tell that everyone has a different opinion about what happened and what unfolded. I can just give my own perspective
Yes.
from how I viewed it as a human rights activist. Beyond that, everyone has their opinion and it's completely fine. We had a very different experiences in Syria. Depending where you are and where your family is from. This is first.
So
Second,
this is just one Syrian man's opinion, but I think the advantage is that this is a Syrian man's opinion. Okay, so please listen more to Syrians about what is going on in fucking Syria. I think this is like the first thing that I want to say to our audience. Please.
Yeah, just like you need to listen to Gazans to know what happens in Gaza, or but sure, it's only your perspective, but you were there pretty much involved. You're not just someone who is like a spectator who doesn't care about what's going on. That's why we also wanted to talk to you about this.
Yes. So tell us your personal story, I think, Manar.
So, okay, just to start very briefly with before the revolution, before all, I grew up knowing about the brutality of Assad. Many people have disappeared back in the days. Even when I was a kid, even other kids, 14 years old boys, would just say something off against Assad and they will disappear. And we've never seen them afterward. And I grew up very much right away into this idea that we're walking on we're walking above the ground, and underneath us there are so many people who've never seen the sunlight for years and years. And the reason I got this as a child is the fear that my family had when they're speaking against Assad, because at home we spoke very much openly, but not loudly. All walls have ears about the regime. And of course, kids often made the mistake and spoke in the school or so. Yeah, my dad said so. And then the whole family sometimes disappears.
Really?
And beyond that, I was born and raised in Latakia, and Latakia is, interestingly enough, the city, the hometown of Assad. So I shared the same hometown as a whole ruling family to some level, and I think as a kid I've seen Bashar al-Assad for the first time before he was president even. But often when you saw those people around, there was always lots of fear. Like there is this character, the cousin of Hafez al-Assad, if I'm not mistaken, Fawaz al-Assad, his name. And that guy used to, he was an old man when I was a kid. He used to go to the hotspot of where young people were spending time. And if anyone has an eye contact with him, they would disappear. Really? As simple as it is, I'm talking about like the mafia of the mafia.
Wow.
Ruling the country with always lots of guns around, lots of, it's a brutal, like, how brutal the Assad's regime is not a secret. And what makes me sad now it became even more not a secret after everyone could see the prisons underneath. And I will be honest, I could never, ever, I have only images in my head of those prisons under the ground. And now when we were seeing it live with video, yes, that's exactly what we had. That's exactly what we had in mind. But it's definitely very interesting time for humanity to see what's happening in the 21st century, because Syria is definitely brutal case, but it's not the only one in the Arab world or in the world. Yeah.
Yes. And this was happening, 200 kilometers from our house?
Yeah.
And I must say that coming from Israeli society, Israelis do not fucking care at all about what is going on in Syria.
They only care when you criticize them, and then they say, "Oh, but what Assad is doing is much worse."
Yes, they use it. They use it as an excuse. That's the only time they care about it, just to use it as an excuse for the horrific things that they are doing, which are even, in some sense, even worse. In some sense, even worse.
I don't know if you.
We cannot compare. It's hard.
Compare.
But there are parameters in which it is worse.
What's happening now in Gaza for sure. But he also did stuff like this to his own people, right? But let's. So you grew up in a family that was very critical of the regime, right?
Much.
Yes, but only inwardly.
Yeah.
Yes, and also outspoken, but in a smart way. Like I saw my father developing lots of ways to talk with people from the regime. After all, I lived in Latakia, which is a city you have lots of people who are supportive of the regime. And also a lot more who were not. This is something people forget, but just because we had the family there, we have the repetition. You could basically speak with people, and just you need to avoid the mention of the Assad. You can criticize the government very carefully and avoid what I used to say is just like, yes, I think the government are ruining the image of our leader. This is how you need to build a bridge in order. It is like you would be speaking sometimes with people holding a machine gun. And of course, you wouldn't go in that direction. Often we were silent, but people would test you, would come and talk to you and try to pull something from you regarding the regime. And yes, so yeah, we needed to live with it.
But then something that interesting, if there is such an atmosphere of fear, how do you know who around you supports the regime and who do not? Because everyone afraid to speak, obviously. So like, how do you know you grow up in a neighborhood that's supporting the regime? Because maybe everyone's just pretending, and maybe, how do you know?
Yeah, you avoid talking about the regime as much as possible. I feel that's something we talked about before. The Assad, he comes from the Alawi sect, and it's a minority. It's, I think, 10% to 15% of Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And the regime, not all the leaders were Alawi, definitely. You had Alawi, Sunni, and Christians and all. But nevertheless, definitely the regime has planted the idea in the Alawi mind, or tried its best to plant the idea in their mind that if I leave, they will kill you all.
Mm.
And this is
we
why
see a little resemblance to something that we may have some idea about.
Yeah.
Just
maybe slight resemblance. I don't know. Yes, continue, please, Manar.
Absolutely. And it is basically the ideology of many dictators and many politicians, unfortunately, including even at this moment, most of politicians where they're leaning to the right. Even Trump, the way he's speaking, he's basically, yeah, they're
also European politicians on the right or the center, the so-called center, which is just right, a different kind of right.
Much.
Yes.
And because they were investing, or they were planting the seed of fear within the community. we needed like a different way of talking with people, because also what Assad did, he wasn't easy with any Alawi person, which is very important, who criticized the government. So if the Alawis who criticize the government, which I know quite a lot of, have spent 10, 15 years, 20 years in jail, and those people were the traitors. Those were the self-hating Alawi. And this is what they were getting called at, called.
So, but in what way, like, did it, like, can you a bit help us to understand how, like, the sects and the groups inside the
Syrian, tell us about the history of Syria, the politics, like just in general terms, what are the different groups?
and how did it came about, the situation that like the dictator came from a minority group that is ruling there, like how,
Yes, I think a lot of people in our audience just don't know.
Including me, I'm ignorant.
I know a little bit just because I talk to you.
I'm learning now,
Yeah.
So 1946, France left, and France already was playing on what they tried in after Sykes-Picot agreement, which divided the area between Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and so on. Jordan and Palestine, of course, as well. They were trying to put Syria, or divide it, if I'm not mistaken, into 5 countries, and one of them is the Alawi. One of them is the Alawi country, which is the coast. But that was far, and what I know that Alawi people were also against this idea, because it's such a, for so long, there were always problems in the Middle East, but there were no real borders people could like go around. Definitely, I know that back in the days, Alawi people got discriminated sometimes because they are a minority. And this is one of the issues that we have to work on, definitely to reflect on the past. I feel the reason we could understand how lots of Alawis supported the regimes was basically the stories from the past that an Alawi person wouldn't really dare to walk into the city because they lived on the mountain, or they come from villages on the mountain. So to come to the city sometimes was dangerous because of some fucked up groups who would play on this string. But in general, the society wasn't this way. You have extremists in every place, and without proper law, you get issues 100%. But when Assad was climbing into the power, it wasn't.
No, you mean Assad Senior, right?
Yes, Assad the father. In the beginning, he was a military leader, and towards the end, he became the Minister of Defense, and that was completely fine. Syria never had a problem to have an Alawi person in such a place. Even when Assad, the story of the Abbas party, it is the party of Assad and Saddam Hussein, after all. That party wasn't very problematic in the beginning. How the party sounds beautiful. It has socialism, freedom, and unity in it. And the idea that it is, that's something I would have troubles with, which is like one united Arab nation with like high goals.
But is it socialism of the national kind?
Yes, like socialism, and we lived, after all, in a very weird socialist country.
So you didn't catch my implication then?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but like, but it was all right, and to have anyone in like a Christian or whoever their sect or religion was, it was completely fine to be somehow in the high places in the countries. There were Christian people, there were Alawis, and many different others. Because society was a lot more accepting of what's going on. And now, after Assad came, it happens that he was from the Alawis, but despite where he comes from, he was just a brutal dictator and treated all different shades of Syria very brutally whenever they spoke against him.
But he because you said France left. And then at the beginning, it was many different countries, and then he united it under Alawi rule, kind of, or what happened before?
No, I'm sorry. No, when France left, France tried to divide the country further and didn't succeed.
Okay.
Because people were against this idea. This is what I meant. And when Assad was climbing to power in the 60s, it was already. It was a problem that I think in that time as well, what's important is to reflect on how Syria was. Syria just hosted, I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who just arrived to Syria.
Yes.
And everyone has this brutal stories of how they left, including my father. And the country was very much full of, like now when we talk about Palestinians, we're talking about second and third generations.
Yes.
In that time, there were people who spent all of their life building their houses and building their community, and suddenly they lost everything. And there was quite a big movement in that time that those people need to go home. And Syria was in a state of war. And definitely Assad. So here's the interesting thing. Assad, anyone who stood against him, accused them of being agents for Israelis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the worst part, one of the worst prisons in Syria, I think the worst of them all is called Sadnaya, but the second or third worst was called the Palestine branch.
Really?
Yes, because in the 70s, 80s, lots of Palestinians got to jail, including lots of people from my family, just because they were activists to some level regarding the situation.
I want to ask you, Manar. I want to say something, and then I want to ask you about. So you started from the Sykes-Picot agreement, and I think that people in the left don't hold accountable enough European forces. So we kind of imagine Europe sometimes as this continent of peace-loving people and liberal people, democratic people, but it is just a fact that most of the troubles we are seeing today in the Middle East originated from European meddlement. So let's be very specific. France, the UK, and Germany. Okay? These are three countries that did a lot of shit
And now the US as well.
So now the US, but people know that the US is evil, okay? They understand that the US is evil, but I think they give the UK and France and Germany a free pass.
Yeah.
And I think we should stop doing that. I think we should hold them accountable. And what the story that you are telling us now started with the Sykes-Picot Agreement that tried to carve up the Middle East into all kinds of like, what they did, let's say this very explicitly, what they did, and the Jews that came from Europe were part of this. This is the point. They were part of this. What they did is they took an area that was kind of okay. Borders were not as, sharp. and the governments were not as brutal, and there were not as many wars. There was not as much problems.
Ottoman rule. It wasn't, independent.
I'm not saying this.
We are anarchists anyway. Any place is not independent to our terms.
But the point is, they came, and for their own interests, they made a mess here, and we are seeing the results of this mess until today. And like, what is the question that I want to ask you? What do you think about the part of Europe about this? What do you think? How can we state this part more? Here is what I want to ask. What is even Syria? Is Syria just a result of this Sykes-Picot agreement? Is there something more deep about what Syria is, or is it kind of like Palestine and even more Israel, just a creation that should just be abolished, and there should be just a Middle East, which is an area where people live together? You know the kind of thing that I'm asking.
This is a bit difficult because we're talking 8 to 10, 12,000 years from history. In my city in Latakia, you have next to my 10, 15 minutes by car, you have this Ogarit city, which is 7,000 to 9,000 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And this is where you have the first alphabets written, the Ogarit alphabets. That's where you had the first piece of music written as well, which someone translated.
Wow. Really? The first notes of music was written?
Yes.
Amazing.
Because there were drawings of the instruments they played.
And they know the notes of the tune?
Yes, they the Malik
Janda. Put this in the episode or something.
Yes, but when you ask me what is Syria, I feel Syria is this place where just like part of the region, this whole region is very, very rich of history, very rich of different ethnic groups. Always, because it's such a strategic place, always there was an eye on it from every empire that ruled the world. And we were mentioning about we give European pass. I don't feel like this is the vibe in Syria, definitely. In Syria, Sykes-Picot is such a famous person, and the English and the French. After all, I grew up with lots of French buildings around. I know in Lebanon you have lots of people who speak French because of.
My grandmother spoke French. My grandmother, who was from Damascus, whose family was from Damascus, they spoke French.
Right, but now what's interesting is never and. At least the recorded history that we know of, never was Syria was held by such a dictator who basically knew how to make deals with all different empires to stay in power for so long.
Yes.
So that's what made him be able to take over and maintain his rule, like his ability to have connection with the empires.
Hafiz al-Assad, yes. Yeah. Hafiz al-Assad was so like Bashar al-Assad, I view him as an idiot who just a dictator, which is quite scary, definitely. But I don't know how he's a criminal. But when I think about Hafiz al-Assad, he was a genius.
Yes.
Who's brutal to a level. He was one who designed all of the prisons now we're seeing. He was the one behind this torture mechanism. He was the one behind turning Syrian community into almost a Stasi kind of community where everyone would tell on you. He's the one who basically dismantled the society, and not just based on sects, you could really never trust anyone in Syria. And
I think it would be parallel
yes.
to. Did you hear about Netanyahu's son, Yair?
Yes, I know about him.
So just to the audience who doesn't know, he's like this libertarian incel kind of rich douchebag idiot who says all kinds of disgusting things about everything. He's like way closer to Trump than Netanyahu is in his like type of behavior. And I think what you say about Bashar al-Assad, I think it would be similar to Yair Netanyahu taking power in Israel, because you can say whatever you want about Benjamin Netanyahu.
He know how to to hold to power.
He is an intelligent person. Yeah. You cannot say that he is not an intelligent person. This is one thing that you cannot say about.
He wouldn't be there for so long if he wouldn't know how to do it. Yeah.
But Yair Netanyahu, you cannot say that he is intelligent. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So I think I just want to say more generally that I think we have a lot of points of similarity between the story that you are telling about Syria and the story that we are telling about our own society. And I think during this conversation, we would like to say more about these points of similarity, because I think you can also understand some general things about how fascism works, about how imperialism works, about how politics works, and in general. Yeah.
But we have to be honest about because I'm offered Zionists tells me say thank you, you live in a democracy, and I tell them it's not a democracy because there's so many Palestinians who don't even have the right to vote. But we must admit that we can make this podcast and not be thrown into a dungeon. This is a fact, this is something that we have to admit, that there's democracy for some people, let's say. And it's ridiculous, but in Syria, it was for nobody, right? So
it's even worse, worse. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah, 100%. I feel like at least what I could view with you and many others from this region, that you are familiar with how political work could be. Let's have a talk. Let's speak up. I feel from my place, the only thing I knew how to do is to go and protest. And yes, we're talking, but I feel now in Syria, we are far away from learning, including myself, how parties work. I was looking at the comments on social media and so on for some journalists, and the journalists are getting questions. How do we start a party? What to do to start? And you see the journalist explaining, you have an opinion, you find few people like you who have a similar opinion, and you create a group. You see if you can get bigger, and you're becoming a party. And this kind of basic explanations were still, unfortunately, practically, we never really had it in Syria. We had only one party in Syria, the Ba'ath Party. And as a student, as a little boy, in the school, I had to wear the military suit, the military uniform, and
Manar is military suit. This breaks my brain. It breaks my brain. It's just wrong for you to be in a military suit.
We're talking about 6 years old.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that continued for so long when at least dictator Assad, Hafez al-Assad was around. And we used to be called the Ba'ath Party Blooms or so, because as a kid, this is what's your status. You don't get a chance to be somewhere else. This is, I feel, a big difference.
Manar, I want you to tell the audience the story about you as a little boy in school. Do you know which story I'm talking about?
Sure.
With your friend, okay?
Yes. Of course. Because in my school, there were people from every different religion. And in the religion class, I was 5, and someone comes into the the teacher comes into the classroom and she asks us who's Christian and who's Muslim. And I got anxiety. I was just like, okay, I can see like part of the class is standing up and leaving the class. I have no idea where they're going to. And I look at my friend Mario and I ask him, what are you? And he says, I'm Christian. And I was just like, I'm with Mario because he was my best friend. And I got quite anxious when I saw the kids just like leaving. In that time, it was a private school and it was part of church. And that's why the majority were Christian in that school. Now, later in the public schools, it was the opposite. It was majority Muslims, and the Christians used to get up and leave the classroom to learn about their religion. But anyhow, when I told my mom this, I was just like, yeah, I told her I'm Christian, and she was laughing. No. We're technically Muslims, but I grew up without much of religion talk around me. So that's why I had a
good story. So you said you're a Christian because you wanted to be with your friend.
Yes,
because I didn't know what I am.
I think this says so much about like the way that they teach us these things. When we're children, we just want to be with our friends.
Yeah.
Oh, he's my friend. I want to be with him. I don't care about this Muslim Christian bullshit. Who cares about this? Yeah. But they force it upon you. And then, like, now it's a funny story. Oh, you thought you were Christian, but you're Muslim. But this funny story, if you take it to the end of this, is wars and genocide and all the violence that we're seeing now. It's not just a cute story. It's something very serious that we don't need to take lightly. This was part of the propaganda. This was a small part of it. If it was only this, okay. But this was a small part of a machine of propaganda that caused the... Manar, can you just say to our viewers, just on a very factual level, what was the damage of the last, how many years is it? 13, 14 years in Syria? Just this phase. What was the results of this? Just so people understand, like the dimensions of the destruction and the suffering,
Big part of my depression since 2014, 2015 has been the not being able to grasp anymore.
Yes.
The level we're talking about. Every once in a while, I get a documentary coming out of Syria, and I'm just horrified in a way. I think now, give it some time, but there will be lots of stories coming out of Syria that were absolutely unbelievable. And here we're talking about people living in war zone for so long, with sanctions from the whole world on Syria. And those sanctions didn't affect the regime, it affected the people. And unfortunately, that's always happened. Like now, when they got into Assad's house is full of luxury cars. Yeah, it's like they have billions and billions of.
It's always like this with sanctions. It's always affect the people, and the people in power somehow succeed to maintain their power.
Somehow, it's not against them. It's not the point. No one. This is just a show. It's a charade. It's not real. Like, we should not take these sanctions as something real. It's not. It's just a charade that they're doing to pretend as if they're doing something. But actually, what I think the goal is very obvious: to enslave people. What are sanctions? Sanctions are to make other people weaker, so that you can take advantage of them, which is exactly what the West is trying to do right now as we speak.
But you support like BDS, for example. It's also a call for sanctions, right? Like I don't want to go off track.
No, but I think this is good that we compare.
Yeah, it gets tricky because when I was in Syria, I was happy about the sanctions when I was there. I was just like, yes, let every government in this world punish this government. Lots of sanctions sometimes help with this regime, for example, not to be able to build weapons the way they want, or to have chemical weapons the way they want. Sometimes it pays off, but when after 2013, 2014, it was just like the international world has failed us. There was a Russian veto and a Chinese veto multiple times from 2011, 2012, and 2013, and so on. And every time there was a veto in the UN, the same way now US is passing veto for what's happening in Gaza. It was just like we used to cry. All of us were watching the calls. We were just like, yeah, nice, we're getting recognition. The revolution in 2011, 2012 was peaceful. Definitely there were events where people kidnapped people and killed people based on their ideologies or religions or sects. But there was 500,000 people protesting in Hama in 2011, in summer 2011, who were fully peaceful and cleaned after themselves afterward. What more do you want of a city which is already 700, 800,000 people, not more? You have 500,000 there who established their own way. And this is when I had a big fight with my dad, because I was telling him, we won. It looks like we won. We are victorious. And he was just like, not even in 10 years. And if it happens in 15 years, you're lucky.
Wow. And your father was correct.
Yes, he was correct.
He lived so many different wars, and like now I look at the war very differently than when I looked at the revolution when I'm 21, 22 years old. And the day Assad fell, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I was crying from 8 until 9 a.m., crying like a baby. My girlfriend told me, I've never seen you crying this way. And I'm just having so much sadness for all the people who never had the chance to see such a day coming. But he was right. His point was, yes, 500,000 are protesting, 500,000, those are Syrians. You can kill them, no one will care.
Yeah, and just like now that you can kill Palestinians. And
yes, in the hundreds
cares.
of thousands now. Yeah. I just want to return to the question of sanctions, because I think an important part of the conversation that we are having, and I think we should have more of it, is to see how it's all part of the same thing, how we need to... This is all different parts of the same process, okay? And we need to compare the different parts and to see that there is a shared goal between us, Manar, Elik, and I. We are all in the group that calls for collaboration, peace, justice, equality for everyone in the Middle East, at least, and for everyone on Earth, right? Okay, so but we need to compare the different situations that we are in to see what needs to be done in every position. Okay, and I think that if we think about Israeli society, it's very different. We will see a lot of similarities, but we will also see differences. And there is something very different about Israeli society, that it is 99.7% recruited to the cult of Zionism. And I think that this is why sanctions in this case are much more warranted, even if they affect mainly normal people.
I think also that's the difference between a dictatorship that's actually oppressing everyone in a similar way than an apartheid system that half of the population does enjoy a democracy.
Yes, you said the democracy for some. Yes.
Yeah, but it's real. You cannot disregard it. We can talk. There is no dungeons for people like us. You know, it's big difference. But there is, like one of the most horrible oppression on the people on the other side of the wall, and it's a brutal oppression. But the people who are enjoying rights like us, they're scared that it will be taken away. So that's why they never want to. When they look at the regime like Syria and they say, like, look, if these guys will take control, it will look like Syria. They use example like this. So we need to understanding together how.
But again, so I want to make a comparison now.
Yeah.
I'm saying Israel is the same as Syria. It's only the difference is quantitative, not qualitative. Okay, there are two groups. One group enjoys the material privileges that the regime offers, and another does not and suffers. And in Israel, it's just divided in a certain way, and numerically, it's like divided up differently. Okay, there's like two groups, and one group is like really, really oppressed, and the other group has like levels, but the levels are pretty much okay for most of them. Okay, and in Syria, it was just like one group that has not much at all, and then a small group that has a bunch. A lot. It's just a different kind of inequality. But I don't know like what is even worse. I don't know. There could be like studies. I don't know. But overall, if you count the overall population. But again, it's just this. In the Middle East and in the entire world, there are the people who enjoy the privileges of inequality, and there are the people who suffer. And the people who suffer want a revolution. You know why? Because they suffer. And the people who enjoy the privileges of the system do not want a revolution. You know why? Because they enjoy the privileges. And some of them have been convinced that they should support the current system, even though they are being taken advantage of by the system. Okay, and you can have a discussion about this, but it's just different aspects of the same thing, and this is what we want to.
And also, and the similarity in the that Russia and China veto like the US.
Yes,
like there are always empires who prevent change from happening, like different empires. But I want to go back to
let's go back.
Also if you have some thoughts about what we just said, but
yes, as much as I'm interested in the Israeli society and so on, I find it difficult to find a way to compare. I think it's okay to say it is complicated, and I think where we meet, because also you said something. What I know in the revolution, it wasn't only the people who suffered stood against Assad. There were the people who were basically demanding or know what we need to have a good life is everyone to be treated fairly.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of rich people I grew up very poor myself. But I know in the revolution, lots of rich people had got into the revolution. They were Christian, they were Alawis, they were from every different sects, every different religions. It wasn't all just based on someone suffering and someone is not. The vast majority of the Syrian population know what Assad did to them. Palestinians know what Assad did to their parents and to themselves sometimes, absolutely. If we're now going to open a very sensitive topic, the Muslims who went more into not extremism, but like if we're talking about Muslim Brotherhood, now we talk about a group that sounds extremist, and it is something to fear. But if you look at what happened to them before they became extremists, before all, they fell very much victim to lack of political work. There was an empty vacuum, and there was no place for anyone to express their mind. And this is when extremism is born somehow. If you cannot have a dialogue, if you cannot express yourself. The same happens with lots of groups from everyone, including, everyone in the entire world. Whenever you discriminated body of people, you would have this difficulties. So that's first. I know that we meet on so many levels, but I cannot fully, I'm not an expert to say exactly where we meet and where we don't. But what I know, talking to you guys, we all believe that if we don't have equality for everyone, we're doomed somehow.
Yes, yes. Inequality is like a reason for violence. It's created by violence and it's maintained by violence and it's a reason for violence and so forth and so on. So I think this is a good point to come back, Manar, to 2011. Okay, and maybe please tell us just generally what happened in 2011 and also what your role in this situation was, what you experienced personally.
Sure. First of all, it's the whole thing started in Tunisia. This man who was trying to sell food couldn't get permission from his trail. He basically didn't have the couldn't have permission. He couldn't have a business, and he burned himself to death. And when that happened, everyone in Syria was talking and looking at what's happening. And then Egypt started, Tunisia, as a revolution started there, then Egypt, Libya, Yemen, and Syrians were very much looking and seeing what's happening. When Gaddafi got killed, there was this, the regime, the Syrian media didn't know how to report on such a thing. And now you can see lots of memes of Gaddafi telling Bashar, if I fall, all of you will fall after me. Yeah. And I'm glad now it happened, but it took a long time. But nevertheless, when it started in Syria, it started with kids. Actually, there are different stories of how it started, but the most famous one is kids writing, it's your turn, you doctor, because Bashar al-Assad was an eye doctor. He studied
yes.
So, Jacques Doria, doctor.
So kids were writing this?
Kids in Daraa.
Wow.
In where?
In Daraa. It's a city right next to the Golan Heights. Right next
really?
To the...
Okay.
Yes.
And it just started happening, people suddenly got courage, right? From this,
everyone was basically
yeah.
I remember at our home, we're just all right, it's happening, it's gonna come. And it was very clear that whatever is gonna happen outside is gonna be different than what's gonna happen in Syria. In Syria, we have a very different neighbors than what Libya has. We have a very different people of interest than Libya or Egypt has. So 15th March 2011, I come home and I feel like already the whole city, Latakia, was very much... There was a weird atmosphere. I couldn't really tell what's happening.
How old were you at the time?
I was 20.
Okay. So you were at university or something?
Yes, I was in uni. I was studying economics in that time.
Okay.
We're very close in the age, I think, me and you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was coming through the city, and the whole city basically is just having different vibes that I've never seen before to some level. And I arrived in my dad, and nothing on my mind, I must say. It just it felt like a weird vibe. And then someone was sitting, and then they left, and dad looked at me with a smile, and he said, "It started."
Wow.
Yeah. Just all right. And this is when he closed the shop. We went home. We checked the news, and there was an official demonstration starting. And it started in Daraa. And then there were a little massacre in Daraa. And the kids who wrote what they wrote, they got their nails pulled out as a torture. And they didn't kill them. It was just basically they wanted to
scare
as an
example, make an example out of
terror.
Exactly. And suddenly cities started coming out. I think here I'm not gonna manage to get the order right, but every city would come out and would say, "Ya Daraa, nahna ma'ak ila al-maut. Daraa, we are with you till the death." And then a massacre happens there. Then a different city jumps and says, "Ya Hamas, nahna ma'ak ila al-maut." And suddenly there was this chain of event, And
Just need to acknowledge the bravery, because people knew they're going to be massacred, right? Like, you know that if you do it, there's a regime going to take you down, and they still went out, right?
Is it bravery or desperation or I don't know what, right?
Yeah.
in my opinion, in that time, I had such a great respect for the Syrian people. In a way, I think I liked Syria. I liked the people in Syria quite a bit. But in that time, in the time of the revolution, this is when suddenly I felt like, oh my God, I love this nation. I love it. Was just basically you're trusting one another and going. And also in that time, everything is still online, the videos. The protests were saying peaceful. We're saying the people and the army are one hand. Don't know for killing. Christians and Alawis and Sunnis are one hand. 111. The Syrian people is one.
Wow.
Everything is still there, even when we had hundreds of thousands of people protesting.
Yes.
It was a clear message. The songs that exist from that time, which until this day I sing every once in a while, but while I'm making coffee or so, were very much anti-Ba'ath Party, anti-Assad's family, but not against Alawis or against. Everyone knew what we needed, and everyone had hope. Like we saw what happened in Egypt before it got bad afterward. But we saw what happened in Egypt. We saw what happened in Tunisia. We wanted that. For the first time, we wanted to be free. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Manar. You were at these protests, right? And you felt the energy of a vast amount of people sounding this voice. And I must tell you that I'm a little bit jealous, okay? Maybe it's funny because the situation in Syria is so bad now, but I'm a little bit jealous because I know that I was never at a protest where I felt that everyone in this protest was expressing a true message of actual unity, not race-based unity. Actual unity, actual solidarity.
Yeah,
I never felt this.
It's always here race-based, and it's always like, it's either we're united against the Palestinians or we ignore the Palestinians,
Yes.
but they're always excluded, even though they live under the same regime, exactly.
And if it's a leftist protest where there is an actual message of unity, it's always usually without Palestinians, because they cannot afford to come to the protest because they are in danger.
Today we're gonna
hopefully we'll go to a protest today, and we hope that there will be actual Palestinians there. But in any case, it's a small amount of people. It's 10, 20, 30, 50 people, 100 people if we're lucky. Yeah. And I never felt this. So I want to ask you, Manar, what does it feel to be like in this kind of energy?
And until this day, I consider the best years of my life were 2011, 2012. 2013, it was falling apart. 2011, I admit I was this naive young man who disagreed with his father, said, no, we're going to do it. I had this hope. We connected with people. Whenever we did, I think, in my opinion, one of the most, it was such a beautiful process to be, beautiful thing to be part of this process. When someone needed to leave the country, for example, we had a whole network to find a fake ID for them to leave. If someone is wanted for military service, they have to go and serve in the army. And in the army, what was very brutal, which was taking place, the soldiers will have orders to shoot at protesters. And the soldiers who didn't shoot got shot in the back. So it was often you shoot or you get shot at. And I know from a fact that in Latakia, in the protest in 2011, things were happening which were so interesting. I've seen a good friend of mine getting arrested.
I'm sorry, Manar. I'm sorry. What you just told, you managed to process it already. Enough to
be able to talk about it.
But you said this to me, and I'm like, fuck, I imagine the situation where someone, I don't know, maybe people had to shoot their own friends and family because this is Nazi shit.
Yeah.
This is like when I think about the Holocaust stories that I heard, it's the same. It's the same. Like the most extreme Holocaust stories that I heard are the same stories that you just told me. Like they threaten people with guns to shoot other people that like.
But I also want to say, you know what drives me crazy? That I still hear sometimes leftists defend the Assad regime.
Fucking shit.
I still hear it. Do you hear it sometimes? Like because of and I don't get it. Like I don't know. You can have opinions about. Soon we will get to what happened afterwards and how it turned into this civil war that you don't know who is who, you know. But how can, like, sometimes I hear like leftists kind of and I don't get it. It's just like crazy to me.
Yeah, we will get to this part soon. Yeah,
no amount of geopolitics, I just want to say this. No amount of fucking geopolitics can justify this. Can justify 1,000 of this, okay?
Yeah.
Just fuck. That's like this is the correct response. Fuck.
Yeah, and this is, as you mentioned, this is by far not just a Syrian story with the soldiers. It is happening everywhere. Every time I've seen a movie from World War II,
yes.
I'm just thinking about my teenage years.
Yes.
I'm just like, I've seen this. This definitely happened, even like before the Nazis, even between Germany and France in World War I. But what I want to say, in one of the demos in Latakia, I've seen them I've seen the soldiers arresting a very good friend of mine who was they put him into the car, and they went, they threw him in the car, they closed the door, and they went to get more people. And they just arrived to the scene, and they arrested my friend. And I'm looking at him from distance, and I'm thinking, shit, this is bad. This is proper bad. Like, just like we came together to the demo and he got arrested. Then I saw a soldier coming, and he opens the door and told him,
wow.
The Syrian army were just people like me who all males have to do military service if they're not alone, an only male between the kids. If you don't have brothers, you didn't have to do military service, but if you had, it was mandatory.
Yes.
By the time you finish uni or by the time you finish high school, right?
No, it's this weird paradox that the army that is coming from the people, if they would just say, we don't obey these guys, it will be over in a minute, but they're scared, and it's this, circle of fear. But nobody wants to do it.
Of course not. And now, to acknowledge how it was heading in that time.
Yeah.
It was going peaceful. The amount of death was very much. I knew in that time, if this killing will continue, I still went for a peaceful revolution. I was part of the movement which was Stop the Killing. We want to build a future for a home for all Syrians. I believed in that. struggled with holding guns, or I'm not pro that, but I could also not decide for someone who's seeing this death coming in their direction and not to defend themselves one way or another.
Yes,
Or
yes.
I didn't have, for example, kids who got killed. My parents didn't get killed. My siblings didn't get killed. I suffered, but I know people who you cannot judge on people in such a situation. What I was judging very much is the international community and the vetoes, one after another, after another, after another, regarding the situation.
What did they veto? Can you explain it?
Again?
What was the veto about? What were they vetoing?
What was U.S. veto regarding what's happening in the region, in Gaza?
To stop selling arms to Assad, you mean, or something?
No. Basically, it was the vote was like to stop the
killing.
Assad should internationally be called like he's killing his people and he's losing legitimacy. And to stop all of this and to have media coming into the country, because media was not allowed, similar to different places at this moment.
And who vetoed it? Who vetoed it?
Russia and China at that time.
So the bad guy. Now the bad guys are the US, but in that story it was Russia and China. It just shows you that superpowers are always the problem.
Yes. In that time, the US was not, I think, like in that time, I think people who supported the regime had this big campaign, which was, thank you, Russia, thank you, China. And we, the people
it's not the Zionists with the fucking US, it's the same fucking thing. It's the same fucking thing. It's amazing.
And we need to tell to the Zionists, look, you're supporting this endless vetoing about killing civilians, it will backfire at you at some point. Just like it backfired and turned into a civil war in Syria.
Manar, can you tell us about your role in this historic time in the revolution in Syria? I think you told me this story about some campaign that you did that went viral. Can you tell this story?
Yeah, we were part of movement called Nabad, which means pulse, and we basically were trying to be to say we are pro-peaceful revolution against the killing. As I said, the stop the killing. We want to build home for all Syrians. We were doing so many different things, and we were definitely a network throughout Syria. And I could tell we, for example, now it feels a bit difficult to speak about how it was because afterward everything changed. But in that time, we were very much engaged in talks, trying to build bridges between people. We were saying stop the killing from both sides once we noticed that some killing is happening based on people's religion.
Yes.
And now, for example, one of the very hard stories, or like we heard of stories of Alawi people in 2012 losing a kid. Getting kidnapped, and then they get killed. And that was happening because this group was Alawi. That was when you started having revenge acts. was happening in 2012, 2013, but that took a year and a half.
Yes.
Definitely some incidents happened here and there. We're talking about 23, 24 million population having a revolution without any chance in our entire life to have a political kind of work. So definitely there was chaos. We were acknowledging this chaos and we were criticizing this chaos.
It wasn't centralized, right? It was like completely from the people.
It really sounds like an anarchic style revolution. It doesn't, like, a lot of people imagine that revolution can only happen in a violent way. And what you're describing sounds like, it sounds good. It sounds like good people trying to do good things. It was suppressed.
Until at certain point, yeah. But
yes, but when you suppress this is what we say about the struggle of Palestinians in Gaza, right? They tried to do the marches of return, right? They did this in 2018, 2019, marches of return, which were peaceful revolutions, like Muhammad told us in the episode that we did with him.
Yeah.
And these peaceful protests were suppressed, and then you get violence. This is what happens. This is what Kennedy said. You know, even Kennedy had the sense to understand this, that if you suppress non-violence resistance, what you will get inevitably is violent resistance. This is just the way the world works. What can you do?
Yeah, very much. Definitely the first few months, again, I feel definitely some stuff happened here or there, but when we're talking about the vast majority of what was happening on the ground was peaceful. And I think that's something we agree on as Syrians now. I think this is one of the few things where when we reflect on the demos from that time, that's something we can say, yes, it was peaceful, and because of the blood, it went bloody.
Yes. Yeah.
After 2011, 2012, 2013, this is when something also very, very important, the regime. This is something say, and I know that Syrians, some very some Syrians disagree with me, but what we knew is that the regime, when they have extremists in their jails, those extremists would leave on one point the jail. And if you had someone who was basically pro civil work and peaceful work, they rarely left the jail. Those people who used to get killed, and the Syrian jails usually were now to connect, to see the network of the beautiful people who worked against the regime in a nice and a civil way. All of them met each other in jails. The jails in Syria were full of, since the 80s, or 70s even, full of doctors, engineers, professors, authors, thinkers, philosophers who had an opinion which was very dangerous for the regime. And the regime knew that its best chance to have the people spreading the chaos outside, to spread fear within minorities, to spread fear within different religions and different groups.
I want to again compare what you're telling us to what's happening here in Palestine, because I think that this sheds a lot of light about how fascism works. Okay, so here also, the people who are most persecuted, I think, are the most peaceful people. Okay, I think Palestinians are being arrested for writing poetry. Right, for writing journalism. Journalists are being murdered in Gaza. They are saying, the Israeli authorities are saying, that they are trying to destroy Hamas and to kill Hamas operatives. But I don't think that that's what they're trying to do. I think they are more scared of the peaceful people. This we see, and if you see who the threats are to the Zionists from within Israeli society. It's people like us. It's people like us. They are afraid of us. They are not afraid of the violent people. Okay. So I think we need to see, okay, so fascism is scared of peaceful people, of intelligent people, of people who want
That's always
connection.
like this,
Yes.
Hitler, first thing, he killed the intellectuals.
And the communists, the communists.
Yeah.
So here is what I want to deduce from this. If fascists are scared of peaceful people, it means that peaceful people, that people who are intelligent, who want to cooperate, who want to bring non-violence and equality and justice, are the dangerous ones. And if we are the dangerous ones, it means that what we are doing could be effective. And this leads me to be in an optimistic place where I don't think that revolution comes from, resisting violently. Maybe it is necessary sometimes, but maybe we need to go full on to the other direction, right? To say, yes, we are demanding peace, we are demanding cooperation, we are demanding equality, we are demanding justice, just like the ODS.
But that's what Manar tried to do with his campaign, and tragically it didn't work, right? And it turned into a violent, so can you...
No, but you see how fascism made it into the violent, to suppress it. This is what they did. This is the way that they suppressed it. They suppressed the people who were calling for justice and equality, and they let loose the people who were calling for violence. And this is their interest, that there are more people calling for violence. And Manar, I want to ask you again about your. You told me a story about this campaign that you did, something that you did that went viral on Facebook. I don't remember the details, but I remember. I think our audience would be interested. So can you tell this story again?
Yeah, one of the thing in 2013, in 2012, when we noticed there is a lot of killing already going on, what I and many others in Syria in general were fearing that the more killing, the more problematic it's going to get to build anything. And we were also seeing people going more extreme in that time. People I knew suddenly disappeared and went to fight, and suddenly you could see them later. Even like some of them got caught by the Syrian regime, and they had to admit, and you could see the long beard and like faces that definitely like Syrian community society was having a tough time. And we started this little movement basically to I will try to look it up very quickly here.
Show us.
Yeah. So in 2012, we had this photo here. Yeah.
Nice.
One of the hands were my hand, and what we were wearing here was basically little bracelets that had white, red, white to keep the blood from both sides safe, and not from the Syrian army, not from the Free Syrian Army. And it was already challenging to give such a statement, because right away they would tell you, are you comparing both armies to one another? And suddenly this image of hands holding together saying no to killing from both sides went viral on Facebook in that time. Everyone, it felt like we gave people place to express, to come together and say we don't want to kill anymore from both sides, even though it was quite a compromise to come down to the regime. Like we compared suddenly the Free Syrian with the Syrian army, which was already very difficult, especially for me as a person against the regime. But nevertheless, suddenly in Latakia, in my city, in different cities, you would walk around and see people wearing it. And people you never spoke to, who liked this idea and felt like that's something they can stand behind. And it was a sign of hope for us. But nevertheless, incidents were happening, and when you have a Christian family or Alawi family or even a Sunni family losing kid because of the Free Syrian Army, it is problematic because now those people will never turn to the regime side, to the revolution side. And this is not what we wanted. But again, one of my struggles as well were demanding this democratic word. And this is only my opinion. And again, I wasn't in the circumstances that those people were in. I didn't go through the same education as those people were in who had to hold guns and fight. On one point, it's extremely difficult to judge them or to say they did wrong. I feel from my perspective, I believed in peaceful way, and I went peaceful all the way until I left, and I was lucky enough to leave. I left 3 hours before my name was on the borders. Yeah, luckily I had a nice network, and 26 February 2013, I left the country, and that was the day when they came to arrest me from my place.
Wow. That's why I want to say we and Alon, we always have the discussion when it will be too dangerous for people like us to stay here, because, we don't know. Right now, the regime doesn't go after the traitors, because it's still important to say that Israel is a democracy, but you said it was a matter of hours, right? Like you were lucky.
Wow.
Just,
Wow.
We need to be aware of that.
Yes, we need to be aware. But I also want to say, like you tell about this movement, and I think I want to learn something from your story. And I think it's easy for a lot of people who are opposing oppression to sometimes
to judge the people who take arms.
Yes, but also to sometimes forget that it has two sides. We need to understand why people feel like they have to defend themselves with force, because sometimes this is necessary. But I also think that we need to remember always, this is just the tightrope that we need to walk, okay? We always need to remember that our end goal is to stop all violence, period. This is our end goal. So this is Elik and I were talking about violence and what does it mean, violent resistance. And I think that violence is something that the default is that it is unjustified. The default should be it is unjustified. And whoever wants to use violence has the burden of proof to prove that this is absolutely necessary. Okay? And I think that this is the kind of approach that if they come to kill you, okay, like you can defend yourself. Even Elik and I were saying, like, you can justify morally that Israelis on the 7th of October defended themselves from the invasion of Hamas. This you can say, but you simply cannot justify morally what came after that, Israel invading Gaza and doing what it's doing in Gaza still 14 months later. Okay, so this is the thing. You can say I want to defend myself using force, but this can be justified morally. There's a discussion to be had here. But any more than that, you cannot. And this is, I think, what I'm learning from your movement. You kept this, I think, in a very precise way. And this is the kind of thing that I want to do here and going forward.
Yes. It's, again, as we said, it's later now. Like, I definitely am not the same naive person as I was in the end, yes. But I believe in the same principles. And the reason is, if there is a chance to build a future, we need to build a future for all.
Yes.
And it's hard.
What happened, Manar? What happened with the bracelets?
I just we had it. I think people didn't really know that it was my hand between nor any of the other four people who were with us. That was like one last attempt of a series of attempts that we were having. Lots of great people in different groups. We were working together, and many got killed, and many got killed in prisons. And after getting arrested and not knowing anything about them, all of us had, we gave our Facebook passwords to each other in case someone gets arrested.
Wow.
You go and you erase everything.
Wow.
There was this, because this is in the end also how I got caught. One got caught and mentioned my name. And it happens under torture in Syria. You cannot, you never know what you can give under torture.
Wow.
And in general, what happened afterward, in my opinion, there was a brutal massacres from Assad's regime in Aleppo. The city got bombed in a brutal way. In barrels, basically. They didn't spend much money on the kind of rockets they killed people with, nor technology. The idea was very simple. A helicopter goes above the city, and if you hear the helicopter and you realize that the sound of the engine or the sound of the plane changed, that means you should run. Where? You don't know, because that means there is a barrel inside of it, quite a heavy barrel full of TNT, full of explosive, and they just drop it very randomly, and basically they carpeted the city. And this is a time where the Free Syrian Army was falling apart, having a very difficult time, not falling apart fully, that took some time. But this is when suddenly groups from Iraq were coming, people for jihad from everywhere in the world coming. It started with al-Nusra, and then it turned into ISIS. And those groups were even fighting the Free Syrian Army. It became, in 2014, I was in Turkey, and in 2015, it was extremely difficult to follow the news anymore.
Mm. That's when it became so complicated that you don't know who, like...
This is what Assad wanted, because until 2013, Assad and Syria were all over every newspaper, every TV channel. It was such a big event that Assad is killing himself, killing people, and suddenly the one image that took over.
It'd be better if he killed himself, right?
Yeah.
Just Assad. Just so you know. We prefer you to kill yourself than other people. I think that is preferable.
To be honest, I'm now glad that he escaped this way. But before I get to this part, in 2014, 2015, the image that represented Syria in that time was the ISIS member cutting the neck of I think an American man.
Yeah, that's what made ISIS so famous, like this image.
Yes.
Yeah, I think his name was John or so, English John. I'm not fully sure. But suddenly that became the face of everything happening in Syria, and no one could speak about anything else. And this is when I think most of us Syrians went into deep depression, knowing that it didn't happen right away. It took some time, but bit by bit, we felt that the revolution failed. The country has gone, and now we don't know anymore what's going on. Suddenly, there were so many different groups. Russia entered the scene. Iran entered the scene. Suddenly, the US was involved. The Kurds got divided. And this is where I feel we don't need to talk about it because it is complex. I can follow some, but I cannot follow everything unfolded.
Yes, so I want to ask you, Manar, you said about your father, who on this day, on 2011, I think you said it was 15th of March, if I remember correctly?
Right.
He told you it started, right? And when you told this story, it felt to me like your father had some hope that something is going to change for the better. But then you also told us that a year or two later, when you had the protest with 500,000 people, when was this?
2 months later.
Oh, 2 months later. Okay, 2 months later, right?
June, July, yes.
This is why I want to ask you. Because then he told you that nothing good is going to happen. So I want to ask you, your father seemed to me like he was a very realistic man, okay? The world needs the dreamers like us, but we also need the realistic people like your father. And what made him change his position in these 2 months? How did he understand so quickly where this was headed?
It was from the beginning. It's not that he changed his mind. My dad was 2 years old when he was refugee for the first time from Jaffa to Latakia. There were so many different wars in the area. Saddam Hussein back in the days, the Kuwait, the Gulf. We have borders with Israel. We have borders with Lebanon, which Hezbollah exists quite strongly. You have Iran playing. Russia is having an eye. The US is having an eye. All region is looking at what's going on in Syria. In my opinion, we, the people in Syria, were not naive, but we were hopeful that a revolution will work. We thought we're dealing with a local problem. What I didn't understand in that time is what it's about the whole world, basically. What these few empires will decide. He knew that for such a regime like Assad, who existed there in that time, 40 years plus, wouldn't just disappear simply and leave the area for whoever comes. And we have borders with Israel. We have borders with everyone else here. So that was my hope. But yeah.
So, but it does seem to me like on this day, on 2011, he did understand that something was starting, right? So it seems to me, if I understand correctly, that your father diagnosed correctly that something was starting, but he said, shwaya shwaya, right? It's not going to be so fast. It's going to take a long time and a lot of effort, right?
Yes, and I think what he always viewed, the way he viewed it, that once it starts, it will never stop. And this is often what happens. It's like once it's a snowball.
Yes.
It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and God knows in which direction it will head. But so you cannot predict it. But what you can predict that this snowball is not going to stop anytime soon. You asked me before about the HTS, the group that took over Syria now.
Yes. What are they?
If you look on Wikipedia, you see the groups who joined the HTS. And HTS in Arabic is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which means Damascus or Sham liberating organism or so, or institution. And it's basically, when I was reading the names of militant groups, army groups who joined it, I think we're talking 40, 50, 60 or so. The list is long. Maybe I'm mistaken, but the list is quite long, and I've never heard of any of these names.
Wow. Okay.
And this has been developing in 2017. So like Golani, the leader of this group, he is, as far as I'm getting from the internet, originally Syrian, born in Saudi Arabia, went to Iraq to join ISIS. From ISIS, he moved to Syria once the revolution started to fight with al-Nusra. And then he had issues with ISIS. And he spent 5 years in American prison.
Really?
As a terrorist. And
terrorists, okay, they love branding people terrorists when they, when they don't cooperate.
Exactly, I'm saying as a terrorist because now it feels like a very different deal suddenly.
Yes.
And then he came to Syria. He was fighting with the same groups like Nusra and ISIS, who were basically even killing people from the Free Syrian Army. That was extremist groups that lots of Syrians were terrified of, including myself. And Free Syrian Army was basically representing, not in all shades of it, absolutely not, but representing that we are the soldiers who are not going to fight for Assad, we're going to fight against it. And then you had these people who wanted to establish an Islamic State in the region. And that wasn't basically the goal of what I know the revolution was. I know the revolution was full of Christian people. I know full of every different sects, and Kurds and Turkmen and Arman and lots of different. So on one point, Golani, the leader, he changed his mind, and now the way he speaks about it, he reflected on what he did. And he moved on, which is, yes, okay. I believe that people can change. I feel this is an area where I would be slightly more skeptic because suddenly this sounds to me like a politician. And he seems like a pragmatic guy, definitely. And I must say the titles he was putting the last 2 weeks, it sounded good. It sounded Syria. We shouldn't kill anyone. It sounded the regime has used the Alawi people for their own sake. It's exactly what we were talking. I feel like that's nice. I'm still skeptic, but this sounds good.
But he's not, we're going to take revenge in the Alawis and all this stuff.
Okay. And basically, lots of different groups who were completely lost in Syria because every part had now a different militia with their own ideology working, and they disagreed. But suddenly he had the group that unified these groups, and he ruled basically his HTS, his organization, his institution, his army, his country, I don't know how to describe it, his state, has ruled city of Idlib in north of Syria for the past few years. And Idlib has 4 million people. So we're talking about already like almost a country that he ruled over them. And the way I know it's difficult. They were getting bombed by Assad often. Turkey is involved. Lots of players are in the area, but definitely Idlib has records of people who were in jails because they spoke against this group. for example. That's something right away makes me feel, yeah, I don't know how to feel about this. But nevertheless, Syria, the revolution, felt it's kind of dead within the last years. And what happened on the 7th of October and everything unfolded later in Gaza, and then with Lebanon, already when Hezbollah was getting damaged, that was already something to think about, because Hezbollah was fighting quite a bit in Syria with Assad against those groups. Mm-hmm. So it was basically this game happening, unfolding, and then Hezbollah got damaged quite a bit and busy. Iran got also busy and quite damaged, and now suddenly spreading over so many, worrying about so many things happening. And they announced the ceasefire in Lebanon, and the next day,
yes,
that happened very quickly. That HTS took over Aleppo.
So do you think that there is a connection between these two events? It's not. You think it's not an accident that this happened right away after the ceasefire agreement?
I just want to say it's not even conspiracy, but it's a very valid question that lots of media outlets asking, and this is what makes me feel I cannot trust what's going on. And now we're going to talk more about what happened since then. Usually, the regime was already weak. People are hungry, suffering. Assad didn't have people standing behind him anymore.
Yes.
The most of the majority, I didn't see my mom in 12 years. And this is now a classic story that people in Syria, most of my friends have. Last time we saw our family was 2012, 2013.
Wow.
So people are extremely, we had enough.
Yes.
And soldiers in the army are not getting paid. And if they're getting paid, they get paid, I hope I'm not mistaken, $10, $15 a month. And I think I'm mistaken. I think this is too much. I really mean it. And that what you need to live is at least 150. Yes. And this is basically the situation. It's quite bad, very bad. The Syrian lira is just is completely worthless. And suddenly this group came, and Aleppo, which has been back and forth fighting for so long, has been always such a tough, since 2013, has been such a tough place for the people against Assad to take over. And suddenly the whole city, which used to host 6 million people, so it's massively, fell.
Yes.
And 2 days later, Hama fell. Which is Hama is the same city we talked about that had 500,000 people protesting back in the days.
Yes.
I'm just suddenly I feel okay, what's going on? And then in Daraa, where the revolution started in the first place, people came out of their houses and they told the regime to fuck off. So they're coming suddenly from the south and from the north and meeting in Damascus and Homs. And here, that was happening already a week ago. And here we're following the news, and as a Syrian community, we're talking to one another, and all of us are confused. What is going on? This is way too fast. There is some resistance from the regime, but not really. And everyone was in a state of okay, we don't get what's happening. And then within a war that continued, or a revolution, started as a revolution, continued as a war for 13 years, almost 14 years.
Yes.
To finish in 10 days, 11 exactly.
So you think, you think there is something behind the scenes that we don't get, that we don't see, that we don't
understand yet.
Yeah.
I feel as a person, like when I'm talking to the journalists who were photojournalists working in the middle of Aleppo, they lots of them are very, very close friends of mine. They tell me they used to spend weeks and weeks to take a neighborhood.
Yes.
Like war would stop on a neighborhood and the fighting would be like quite intense. And to have everything falling apart this way, I guess the regime is falling apart. And I was just like in a state of confusion. Definitely, part of me is hoping for a good path. And then here, Golani, the leader of these groups.
Can you tell the audience the meaning of the name, Golani?
Golani, so this is his nickname. Abu Muhammad al-Golani. Abu Muhammad means the father of Muhammad. Golani means a person from the Golan Height.
Golani.
So,
okay.
Yes. I was surprised when you told me this in our first conversations about. Yes. So Golani is the name of one of the army units in the Israeli genocide forces. Okay, Golani. They are like they're responsible for like 30% of the genocide. I would say Golani.
Very genocidal. Yeah.
Very genocidal unit. Golani. Interesting ironic twist of history.
Wow, I had a bit this feeling what you described after 7th of October. Like I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I have some tendency sometimes to conspiracy. And I like, what the fuck, the strongest army that have like such a surveillance system. Suddenly they don't know about it and they just let it happen. And then it took 8 hours till the army responded. Like, the whole thing was so fishy.
Yes.
And I still think sometimes somebody there they kind of knew about it and they had their interest to let it happen. But
maybe some people had some stuff to gain. I don't know.
Like, it's this question that you're like, how suddenly 10 years of war, like 14 years of war end in 10 days just like that, it's like.
So I want to ask you, Manar, about Caitlin Johnston, okay? So she's been writing in the last few days, and I must say that she is in some way responsible for my confusion, okay? Because I talked to my Palestinian friends, and they are all rejoicing that Assad fell. And I talked to you, and you are happy that Assad fell. And Caitlin, on the other hand, is saying, don't be happy. This is a ploy by the US and Israel. This is just the empire expanding itself. And she has some like.
And Israel immediately started conquering land in Syria. So it kind of, this is also something I wanted to ask you about, if you understand why they're doing it. And I don't
Maybe we could like pull up one of the posts by Caitlin and we can like analyze it. What do you say, Manar?
I agree and I disagree.
Yes.
So I agree because, yes, I think she's right. Unfortunately, what happens in countries is rarely the people's will. And this is a fact that we need to acknowledge very well and go beyond the illusion that people start a revolution, it worked, and voila.
Yes.
I feel within this time we're living in the 21st century, where with the CIA, with the Mossad, with the Russians, with the Chinese, we're having a little chance to decide our own destiny. So I agree with her here. What I disagree is this idea not to be happy. I will tell you now, throughout these years, I feel we paid quite a price. And some people were regretting getting into the revolution in the first place. Like we were living under the dictatorship, but we were living with our families. We had our people. Why to have this destruction? And I get this argument as well. I feel the whole point is to go somewhere, and any kind of change is better than the status quo. And
yes. Anything is better than what you described that Assad, the son, and Assad, the father, did for decades.
Yeah, but if your life is destroyed by war, I can understand someone thinking, just at least someone take charge. I don't care who is it.
Yeah, someone else, anyone else.
Yeah, even I can understand this where it comes from.
Yes. Yes.
And in a way, I feel the whole point we needed to change, to build a society, to believe in a future where we can have a society which is healthy enough to live together. And Assad was an obstacle, and quite an obstacle that became a dead end. Like there was no way to go with any kind of solution to fix the refugee problems. For example, are 10 million refugees outside. 14 millions with 4 million displaced inside the country. We're talking about such I think it is the biggest refugee crisis in our time now. And we saw how it changed the face of Europe, the face of Turkey. Lebanon used to have 3 million, has 6 million now. 6 million and a half, 3.5 are Syrians. You have more Syrians than Lebanese. I hope I'm not wrong with the numbers, but it is that level.
Yes.
So how many refugees are from Syria from this war, like around the world? Like
outside of Syria, 10 million plus.
Wow.
And this is a country of 24 million, you said?
Exactly.
Like, oh, wow, it's almost half of the population became refugees.
Like unimaginable.
It's outside of the country. You had lots of refugees inside.
Inside as well, yes, inside as well. And prisoners and people killed. How many people were killed in the last 13 years?
It's something still to know, to find out. It's something still to find out.
What is like the order of magnitude?
So like a million plus?
Like a million people
killed. This is how many people died in this war.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there is 150,000 now people who are still missing in prisons.
Yes.
Or just like most probably got killed. 150,000 who died in jail that we don't know of. Not like the people who are documented. So like already we have such a dire situation, and Assad was the obstacle. So anything to talk about the region was impossible. And Assad, if you noticed, was trying to play passive with everyone with all players in the area. He wasn't responding with Erdogan. He wasn't saying a word about what's happening in Gaza. He didn't say anything regarding Iran, nor Hezbollah. He was just like, I just want to stay the ruler.
Yeah.
He wasn't even in power. You had everyone else, basically. Syria became a playground for all of those players. So already it was a must that he leaves, so we can see what we can deal with already and fix the issues and the extremism that happened. Now, 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks, 11 days, and he leaves the country in this way, which is already nice because lots of people who supported him and really believed in him felt betrayed and felt really like he let them down. He convinced them that Alawi people and Christian people will die if the rebels take over. And then he let them, from their point of view, die and left to Russia. Family to seek asylum.
Yes.
So that was already nice that he didn't die fighting, for example, or so. He just fled with most of the money from the nation.
Yes.
God knows how many billions of dollars.
He's in Russia now?
Yes, he's in Russia. He's hiding.
Yeah. He applied for asylum, political asylum, and no asylum on humanitarian reasons, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
What do you think Bibi would do if he felt threatened? He would probably move to the US, right?
Yeah, he would.
Immediately run to the US, immediately. That's what he would do. They said this. His wife, at some point where there were troubles here, she said, and people were criticizing Bibi, and she said, "Let's just go to the U.S. and let the country burn."
But I wanted to ask, maybe I'm naive, but maybe, okay, so what's happening now, it's not the revolution, but is it opportunity to renew the revolution?
Yes, this is important.
Now, 3 days ago, on the 8th of December, I was crying because how happy I was and how emotional I was. And I joined the celebration here, and it was brilliant. I lived one of the nicest days I've lived in a long time, and I started having dreams of going back to Latakia, seeing my city again. My house is still there, and I miss my neighborhood. And also there is this struggle that has been going on since also the since the whole situation in the Middle East unfolding. It feels like our home or this land where we come from is being completely destroyed, bombed in a very brutal way. And refugees all around the world are getting basically discriminated by the governments. Like here in Germany, there was a rise of right-wing speech. You feel like you're not welcome, even though I don't know, like I'm working, I'm paying my taxes, my girlfriend is German. Still, you start feeling like, because you're born in Syria, you're not welcome here. Not from everyone. I still have a big community, but nevertheless, the news, how politicians speak, we need to send people back to Syria. It's just like hurts. And it feels like there is no way to go. And what happened on the 8th of December, I felt like finally I have a place. If I want to fuck off from here, I can go somewhere and call it home and build a life. I think with your past, from your parents and so on, this classic story of having nowhere to belong to.
Yes.
It's the fear.
Yes, and we are also starting to feel it personally as well. I don't know. I felt it all my life in some sense that I don't belong here really in this society, because this society is dangerous and fascist, and it's becoming worse and worse and worse. And Elik and I are speaking, like you told this story that you escaped Syria within like a few hours of like margin of error. And then Elik and I started speaking in the break that we took. We were like, fuck, should we leave? Like this, like, it's scary. And it's happening more and more and more. And I think this is why we need to be very careful and to really resist now. It's truly a matter of life and death that we resist effectively in this situation. This situation is very precarious all around the world. A lot of places have rise of fascism. You see it, and we need to be very.
And this is the antidote, like to fascism. We speaking exactly. Like people like us that they separated us for all our lives, kind of.
Yes. Now, what I feel like what we are doing now is exactly the kind of thing that everyone should be doing to discuss, and then we can learn from each other and connect and build the resistance in practice.
The more I hear it, like I feel more like I want liberation for Syria, like I wanted, for Palestine or for us and for.
I want Manar, you to be able to come to Jaffa and visit where your father was born. And I want also myself to be able to come to Damascus and visit where my grandmother was born. And I want both of us to be able to host each other and have hummus together and tabbouleh salad that you gave me a recipe for. Thank you so much, Manar. It was really good. That's all we want. And then look at how much resistance we're getting. That's all we fucking want. That's all we want. Yeah,
Like if you say I'm not with killing, they accuse you of being criminal even.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Now, regarding the situation in Syria, before the speech was very much Syria, the Syrian regime has manipulated the people to fear, like to spread fear, and we understand that we're one people. And now, since this new government is taking over, I feel lots of fears are rising. Mm-hmm. Now, what makes me feel it's much bigger than anything I can understand or be able to follow, that Israel has bombed, I think destroyed 70 to 80% of the Syrian army capabilities.
Wow. These few days it happened already?
It is the largest campaign in the Middle East. What happened 2 days ago? I was...
And in Israel, they don't speak about this. No. They don't speak about... Not really.
They do.
But definitely,
but they don't give you the factual stuff like this. You don't know that. But what are they doing? Why are they doing it? I don't get it. What do they want? Do you understand?
So here's my trouble, and I feel here we're walking into minefields.
Yes.
Minefield, because there is so much to be vague and not clear, and I feel it just wise to raise questions.
Yeah.
This government takes over. Within 11 days, the regime falls in one of the worst ways that we were completely afraid of, because it's a chaos. There was no handing peacefully over the power. It was just everyone left, and people came, and soldiers just. The way the army stopped fighting, they took off their uniform and threw their guns on the street, and they walked as civilians. This is how ironic the scene was. Wow. Now, 2 days or within like a day later, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, everyone in Latakia, everyone in Damascus was writing on Facebook that we never heard such a bombing in our entire life. And that was basically the campaign that Israel was doing. Mm-hmm. And now what the government in Israel is saying, that we are destroying these weapons in order not to fall into the hand of extremists.
Did they kill a lot of people, by the way?
I don't know. Like what I'm struggling with, I'm not managing to find. I think statistically, lots of people might have died, but I cannot confirm nor deny. I'm definitely. I tried to find the information. I couldn't find it. I feel it's being spoken about in the Western media, but not enough. And of course, this. What I was also. Feeling and hoping for. It's not like I have any hope with Netanyahu or so. After all, he is just like other war criminals wanted for ICG, and it is now officially what happened as like now there is a law in lawsuit and law case against him, but. That was one of the situations where to invade, because they announced that Golan Heights will be now part of Israel forever. This is what Netanyahu said.
This is recent?
Say?
This is recent? This is like in the...
Yeah,
I thought this was the official position of Israel for ages now. I don't know.
No. There was an agreement between Syria and Israel that there is this no guns area, no weapons area.
Yes.
And Israel crossed it now because they said with Assad's gone, this agreement doesn't.
Oh, it's void. They say it's void. So now we can do whatever the fuck.
Maybe just opportunity to take more land and that's it.
Yes, I think it's the Zionist project. It's an expansionist.
Yeah, they took more land, and I feel one of my issues. I have lots of issues, but one of them, I feel this is such a critical time in Syria to calm down any kind of religious talk and to try to, we already are having such a difficult situation and a very critical one, and to deal with all of this, which is already enough, and then on top, Israel taking more land.
Yes.
Is just and bombing all of those areas. I feel it's now, I don't know, like 2 days ago, I'm just sitting and I feel like, okay, like, all right, I don't know what to say. Like when they say we're bombing the weapons, all right, okay, I am against weapons. I don't know how to feel about that, but nevertheless, when you're taking a land, this is not a good faith start.
We keep saying it's fighting Islamists, and it's doing all the stuff that make the Islamism and more religious fanatics double itself.
And just so everyone knows, I look at the reaction to this from the Israeli public, from Jewish Israeli public, Zionist, from the Zionist cult. They justify what is going on in Syria the same way that they justified what they did in Gaza, the same way that they justified what they did in Lebanon. But like each campaign, each expansionist campaign is becoming less and less justified. Okay, like you can say, I don't agree, I completely disagree, but you can say that on October 7th there was an attack and therefore Israel needs to retaliate. Let's assume this, okay? You can say that the Lebanese, that Hezbollah bombed Israel and shot rocket at Israel and that this is a response. You can say this. But what has Syria done? Like Syria did nothing, and Israelis are taking, and still the Israelis, the Zionists, are saying that this is for security reasons, that we need to do this for security. This is the vast majority of Zionist society. They still say this. They still use the same fucking arguments.
You have, again, lots of players, Turkey, Russia, Israel, US, West. I feel one of the things that I had hopes for, that the war cannot deal with Syrian refugees anymore, that they needed to have a stable area in the region so people can go back or not to continue crossing. So this is what I thought. Now, I must say, maybe I'm paranoid, maybe I have no idea, but the government now in Syria is not very much promising. It's the way, for example, now we're speaking again, the people who stood for the revolution back in the days. Now it, like, I think I posted about that because I was feeling very much terrified. The new prime minister, he wasn't elected, and they said that he's going to be there only for 3 months. All right, until the 1st of March. Okay, this sounds reasonable, but in his announcement of accepting the position, he was standing in the government office with 2 flags behind him: the independent Syrian flag, which is a flag of the revolution, and
yes,
big, large, on large scale, and the flag of unifying Muslim Sunni people, if I'm not mistaken. I hope so, yes, but it's definitely an Islamic flag. And it's I lived all of my life with lots of different religions, but definitely lots of Muslims, and I know that the stereotype people have about Islam is bullshit. You have lots of Muslims in the world, and it's such a, just like any other religion, people are people, and when they're having, like, I don't think, if we think about the West has killed many people more than any Islamic country did, for example. And still, there is this idea which I stand strongly against. I believe that life in Latakia, as I know it, with Muslims and Christians, was beautiful. There was always problems, but I feel there was a great deal of acceptance between people. And this is how I know Islam. But when this flag comes into the government office, it reminds me of the Ba'ath Party flag being in the government office. Now, when Trump gets elected, he cannot put the Republican Party flag with the American flag. It's just like it's one.
He might though.
He might, and that would be a fuck up, because this flag should represent everyone, and Syria is full of colors. That this is already a bit makes me feel like, oh no.
Yes.
This is the ideology of Assad that we want to get rid of. Despise the religion, put the religion aside. 60%, 70% of Syria is Sunni Muslim. And the way I know it, before the war and even after the war, people are happy to live together. People are happy to build community together. And I feel we want to get over this state where someone's forcing one ideology or another upon people. And in this critical time, I feel no one elected this leader to become this prime minister. And this flag is already causing quite a big debate within Syrian community. And the way the government are talking between one another, so far there is no woman speaking. I get it. It is rough area we're having in Syria, 100%. But the Syrian women have a quite a strong voice. The same with Palestinian women. I know from my grandmothers and my aunts
are very strong.
Such strong. I remember in demonstrations, one little thing just to wrap up what happened in 2011. I was going to the demo, and I stood right next to, I was on sidewalk and in the cross of the street. There were lots of people coming from every side, and I'm looking at them and I feel like, wow, this is a brilliant scene. It's so nice. And suddenly someone hits me from the back, slap on my neck. And I look, and this woman wearing blue dress and the cross in her neck. And she's like in her 50s, and she's telling me, what are you standing doing here? Look at them there. Don't stand here. Go protest. And I feel like, oh, and this is how I know the revolution. This is how I know.
But maybe now is the moment for the people of Syria to get out and scream, we demand democracy. We now, is there any chance that in this, moment people will get themselves, because what you described in 2011 and 12 sounds so beautiful, and it sounds like a spirit of, of people getting together from different sects for shared values, so it exists in people's hearts, right?
And there's an opportunity now. There's an opening now.
Yeah.
This is what it seems like.
Yeah, I'm now trying to be outspoken. And there is something which is very important because some people might tell me, how come you didn't speak for so many years? When I left from 2011 till 2013, I was quite out loud spoken, and my writings are still there. And my record is still there. And in 2013, they threatened my family.
Yes.
And suddenly it became an issue that you are the one in safety, and they have hostages, your family as hostages.
Yeah. So if you speak, your family can pay the price.
Yes.
They came to arrest my brother.
Yes.
This is how he left the country. It's not like it wasn't a joke. It was like my father got harassed by the national security for a long time after it.
But I feel like, sorry, I cut you. I just feel so much anger towards Israelis because I'm fucking nothing would happen to you now. Like, Israelis sit quiet and there's nothing like this. Like, people can speak out here and they don't. And like what you're
because they support the genocide.
Yeah, but like I think
this is their position.
But sometimes I talk with so many people and in closed doors they tell me, what happens in Gaza is horrible. Like if there is Israelis watching this is mostly your thing to speak to Israel.
No, you do it.
אבל תדברו, כאילו אם אתם רואים את זה, זה שאתם שותקים, עכשיו אנשים משלמים על זה בחיים שלהם, זהו. Usually Alon doing the thing of talking in Hebrew to his... Because I know what you're describing is a real thing. People could hurt if in this situation, I don't criticize you for not speaking up, but in Israel, there is like this situation where people can do it and they choose not to, and it drives me crazy. Sorry, you were in the middle. I wanted...
I agree with you. It was one of my great issues. Also with Syrian people. After all, not... Like when the revolution started, it's not like everyone joined. Definitely not. If so, life could have been very different. People had fears. Politicians managed to spread this fear, and it worked. It often works. Folks are often victims of propaganda. It happens. This is why I don't have hard feelings with lots of them. I feel, if anything, we need just like to focus on the future. And this way of talking that, look, you're not doing enough, I get it, fully get it. But there is always a time where someone is not doing enough, including...
I also had time when I could do and I chose not to do anything.
Me too. Yeah. So Manar, but tell us, you started doing more, right? Like you told me that something changed a few days ago in your state of mind, right? That you went from depression to like cautious hope. Is that true?
Such a cautious hope, absolutely. I feel now I'm trying to connect again with every activist I worked with. Lots of lovely people who all of us paid such a heavy price for the revolution. Now there is this way of talking that Islamists have liberated Syria. So some people are arguing this is why it's okay for them to rule it. And I'm having such a difficult time with that because I know people like Golani were one of the people who damaged the revolution and he killed Syrian civilians and he was fighting, if I'm not mistaken, the Free Syrian Army. Those extremist groups were something, I don't know any Syrian personally, and I know a lot of them. I didn't get to meet any Syrians who was okay with extremist groups taking over. Now, extremism is a side effect of problems that we need to talk about. And I acknowledge that extremism is a side effect. And to talk about it as an issue is not fair, I think. I feel often, if you zoom in, there are reasons, logical reasons, not justifying, but you see the chain of events, how it led to this place. The same goes with nationalism, and the same goes with many.
Also, like, Hamas, the people say how cruel it is to, let's say, for people who are considered collaborators. And they torture and kill in the most, like, horrible. I heard testimonies. I heard testimonies from Palestinians. It's, it's scary. So I'm not justifying, but like you said, like when you're under occupation, you understand why the resistance movement going after collaborators, because collaborators is how the occupation control the population. So,
and we also even understand Zionism, and we also even understand Nazism. We understand that there are conditions that allow these things to blossom, or the opposite of blossom. I don't know what it is, rot. But the point is that if we want to minimize these things and resist these things and combat these things, we must treat the problem at its root.
And understand, why it's happening.
And the root is separation, and the root is hierarchies, and the root is control, and the root is cults, and the root is nation states, and the root is, ethnic division, and so forth and so on.
Religions.
And fear and religion. And this is why we want to fight all these things together. The solution is solidarity and cooperation and striving for true democracy, for true equality. So what did you want to say, Manar, about...
I wanted to say, I agree with you, and you got there. I feel just the roots are basically the ability to see someone suffering and not offer to help. For example, when I'm having conversation with when I now think about how Muslims are being treated worldwide, I feel that's horrible. Yes. This is not okay. The Muslim minority, which is 200 million people in India, are being discriminated in very horrific rate that I feel I need to stand for Muslims. And this way I stand for Christian minorities in Muslim countries when they get discriminated. And this ability to just, you don't need to be religious and I feel just we need to get to a place where whatever your belief is, you can have it, you can live it, as long as you're not forcing it upon others. That's brilliant. I think it makes our culture quite rich. Most of the things I love about the history is all different religions that we had. Like one of the gods that existed in my city, Ogarit, in my city, which was 7,000 years old god, was the god of death, which was named Mot, which is now the same in Hebrew, the same in Arabic, the word of death.
Yes.
You know what I mean? All of us, we share quite a lot. And I find it fascinating to look how religion, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and all Semitic languages and the areas where everything came, where all those gods and religions came from and developed. I find it amazing. And for sometimes throughout the history, we managed to live together. And we need to, maybe it didn't happen before peacefully. We need definitely to get this to this place. But historically, there were times where we, like in India, before England came, religion was such a personal,
And also what you described about Syria, it sounds like people there knew how to live with each other. And also in Palestine, there was also Christians, Muslim, and Jews living together. So
yes, perhaps things weren't perfect, but they were certainly better than what we're seeing now in front of our eyes, right?
We're having a toxic climate.
Governments are always governments always try to make people go against each other. I see it as the most horrible thing. Factor in my worldview. I still need to to make it more basic. I think people are so afraid of the word anarchism, but if you look everywhere in history, it's always people on their daily life know how to live with people who are different than them. And then the governments come and mess it up. I know it's very simplistic to say it, but overall,
I think it's like people in power in general. I think it's not just governments. Government is just one aspect of this. But people who want power, people who want to maintain their power, people who want to increase their power. This is the kind of thing. Okay, so I think we've been talking for a very long time now, Manar, but let's just close up this episode with something about the future, okay? So we were talking about this time being an opportunity. And I think Elik and I also feel like the last year like what happened on October 7th was horrific, and what has been happening since October 7th was even more horrific in many, many levels in Palestine. But still, Elik and I feel like this time is a historic time. And there is an opening here. There is something to be done, and we feel the urgency. And we feel like suddenly there are possibilities. I also went from depression to like a feeling of cautious hope. Okay? And I think we need to talk.
I still move between the two.
Me too. Okay, but there is still the moments of cautious hope. Okay, which I did not have before about the political situation here. Yeah. And I feel like now we are seeing things again start to change. Also in Syria, also probably in Lebanon, we will see it. We're seeing all kinds of stuff, and I want to finish by talking a little bit about what we want to do in the near future to push things in the right direction, and how we want to cooperate as well to bring our shared vision to reality. So what have you started doing, Manar, and what are your plans for the near future?
Now regarding Syria, at least, I'm trying now to check how much of it's hard to but like to I think lots of people agree on that we need a civil country to work beyond our differences. And often the problem is the loudest voices are the voices which are spreading fear and spreading hate. This is universal. So I feel somehow now in Syria, it's such a critical time to go with this direction. I'm starting now with social media, and I'm checking now with everyone I've been friends with and talked to and impressed by, to see what we can do. To be honest, it's still very vague. Everything is very new. I'm still confused and I'm still checking what's happening. But nevertheless, I feel now we have a golden opportunity to build a civil community. And internationally speaking, I hope that we don't get lots of manipulation from the outside world. Like, I really hope that Israel sticks to the borders and let this country recover for a bit.
I don't bet on it.
Yeah, I know. I find it extremely difficult.
Yes. Israel immediately uses the situation for its own interests. Amazing.
Extremely difficult. Yes. It's such a critical time, and people's life on the line. Lots of minorities and different religions are living in Syria, and we finished with a military boots rule, and we're not going to allow a different boot to rule. And this, what I will try to do. I'm very much interested also in anyone who has ideas how to come together. I feel it's nice to have a bit more of international vibe, more than just to go on local vibe, because in the end of all, we are connected in ways we like and in ways we don't. And it is always something happens here affects something there. The Germans, who didn't care much about what was happening in Syria in 2011, suddenly in 2015, they saw 1 million people coming.
Yep.
Happens.
Yes.
And the war is getting worse and worse by the hour.
Yes.
Because that's the irony of people who think other people's problems are not their problem. Like,
there's karma, and it always comes to bite you in the ass.
Yes.
So in this optimistic note, I want to thank you so much, Manar, for coming and explaining to us about what's going on in Syria, your homeland. And we hope to heal both Syria and Palestine and the entire Middle East and the entire planet. And guys, any final remarks before we close up this episode? Elik, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I just thought, talking to you, how like what I want for Syria is what I want for, Palestine is what we say. It's like to have this multicultural place that people live together and respect each other differences, but still cooperating. And I wouldn't fight for it if I would think that people are not capable of it, but they are capable of it. And it was so nice to talk to you. And I really hope we're gonna, like we say with all of our guests, we will hope to do it again soon, because it's amazing conversation
Same from my side. I'm very happy we talked. Also, it is quite a complex situation, so I hope it was all right, whatever we touched on. And yes, I think a lot will be more clear in the near future.
Yes.
But I'm full of hope.
Yeah. So I think let's make a tentative plan to speak again in a few weeks or a few months when we understand more what is the situation in Syria. And I think it's a good idea to do this in a way that is continuous, because I feel like we're not just talking. I feel like we're also, by talking, we are also constructing something.
Yeah, we're creating some network that maybe one day it will become more active with more people. And like you said, it's international. We need to learn to be a big universal collective that know how to collaborate.
Yes, a collective of individuals. Yeah. This is the way that we like to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much, Manar, for this amazing conversation. Amazing. Thank you to the audience for watching. I hope you learned something about what's going on in Syria, and I hope that we will all continue to learn more and more, and to use this knowledge that we have to bring about a better future.
Free Syria and free Palestine.
Yes, free Syria, free Palestine, free the Levant.
Yeah.
We have a WhatsApp group, the three of us, called the Levantines. The Levantines, and maybe this is like what we want to achieve: a free Levant first of all, and then maybe a free planet as well.
Yeah,
this will be lovely.
Yeah,
inshallah. Okay, bye everybody, and peace and justice for all.